Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about fairness, and we're going to be using the children's book, Kids on C Street, to help us with that. And in this story, we meet a girl named Cookie. And Cookie's really excited because a new girl named Laura has moved to C Street. But as their friendship starts to develop, Cookie starts to think about this dilemma. Like, how do you balance wanting to be inclusive and kind with also wanting to be special?
Yeah, that's such a great question. It really is. And I think it's interesting because it sort of gets at something that I think we all struggle with even from a very early age. You know, we want to feel like we belong, we want to feel connected. But at the same time, we also have this kind of natural need to stand out, to be recognized for, you know, who we are as individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kids on C Street does a really good job, I think, of capturing that tension. Right from the beginning, you see Cookie's just so excited to become friends with Laura.
Yeah.
You know, she's eager to include her in all the games and everything. But we also start to see these little hints that Laura doesn't quite fit in with all the other kids. And a lot of that has to do with her. You know, she has brown skin and she just seems a little out of place.
And that's what I find so interesting about this story. It's not just a simple story about making friends. It's really about how children encounter, you know, for maybe one of the first times, what it means to be different and how they start to think about, you know, what fairness means and what it means to belong, especially when there's these sort of societal pressures, even if they're not spoken out loud.
Right. And it's really highlighted, I think, in the story when some of the kids decide that they're not going to give Laura a Valentine's Day card because she's different. You know, it's kind of a harsh reality check, even in this children's book.
Yeah.
It just shows how, deep those ideas can be even in kids.
Yeah. It really does. And then, of course, that sets the stage for Cookie's own conflict. Because she wants to be kind to Laura. She really does. But she also wants to feel special.
Yeah.
She wants to feel like she stands out. And, you know, her first idea is to give Laura like a whole pack of Valentine's Day cards, which I think says a lot about how she's understanding fairness at this point.
Right. It's like she's thinking that more is better, which I think a lot of us when we were kids probably thought the same thing. But her mom really helps her see that that's not really what fairness is about.
Exactly. When her mom tells her to be fair, it forces Cookie to actually ask herself, what does that even mean? Like, does it mean that everybody gets the same thing? Or does it mean that you go out of your way to do something nice for someone who maybe seems like they're at a disadvantage? And the book doesn't give you an easy answer, which I think is really cool.
Right. It really makes you think about it.
Yeah.
So Cookie actually ends up talking to her friend Jenny, and Jenny gives her the idea of making Laura a really special card. Just for her. Like a one-of-a-kind card.
Yeah.
And that seems like the perfect solution.
Right.
It's kind and it's also unique.
Yeah.
But as we'll see later on, even with really good intentions, things don't always work out the way we hope.
That's true. So we get to see things from Laura's point of view, which I think is so important. You know, she's not just passively receiving Cookie's kindness. She has her own ideas about what's fair and what it means to fit in. And, you know, she doesn't want to be treated differently.
Yeah, exactly. I love that line where she says, I don't want to be treated differently from the other kids. Because it just shows how much she wants to be part of the group. You know, she doesn't want to be seen as someone who needs special attention.
Right. And it makes you wonder, you know, when we try to be extra nice to someone who's different, is that actually a way of excluding them? Like, are we, even if we don't mean to, making them feel more other? That is such a good question. It really makes you think about whether Cookie's actually making Laura feel more isolated, even though she's trying to be her friend.
Definitely. It just shows how important it is to understand where other people are coming from and to realize that what we think is nice isn't always how it's received by someone else. And that's true in all kinds of relationships, not just with kids.
Absolutely. It's something we can all learn from.
Definitely.
It's interesting how the book really shows how complicated this all can be.
It's roughly.
So, Valentine's Day comes, and it turns out that Cookie's not the only one who made a special card for Laura. Jeff did too.
Oh, wow.
But instead of being happy about it, Laura's reaction is it's complicated.
Yeah, her reaction in that scene, I think, is really important. It makes you realize that you don't always know what's best for someone else, even when you're trying to be kind. Laura doesn't actually like being treated differently. It just makes her feel uncomfortable. Yeah, that's a good point. It's like sometimes the best way to make someone feel included is just to treat them the same as everyone else.
Yeah.
You know, not try to do something special for them just because they're different.
Exactly. And then Laura even says that, you know, giving her those special cards might make the other kids feel bad, which I think shows that she's starting to understand how all of this works. Like, it's not just about her and Cookie. It's about how everyone in the group feels.
That's true. She's really thinking about everybody.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting how the book deals with race. It's subtle, but there's that scene where Laura corrects Cookie about the color of her skin, and she points out that just because she has freckles doesn't mean she's black.
Right.
It's like the book is making us think about how we see people and how we put them into categories based on how they look, and how even when we're trying to be inclusive, we can sometimes say things that are kind of stereotypical.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Cookie's trying to be nice to Laura, but she ends up making her feel worse. And this is where I think Cookie starts to really learn what fairness means. Laura even says to her, "It's nice to make people feel good, but no one else but me got special cards."
Yeah, she realizes that it's not just about doing something nice. It's about making sure that everyone feels included. And sometimes that means just following the rules, like everybody gets the same kind of Valentine's Day card.
Right. It's about being consistent.
Exactly. And I think Laura's mom gives some really good advice, too. She says that sometimes when we think we're being nice, we're actually hurting someone else, which is something we can all think about. You know, it's not just about our intentions. It's about how our actions affect other people.
Absolutely. So both Cookie and Laura are learning from this whole experience.
Definitely. And I think that's why the ending of the book is so powerful. You know, that scene where they're both swinging Jackie together at Laura's brother's birthday party.
Yeah, that's a really sweet scene.
Yeah. It shows that they've moved past all that awkwardness from before. Now they're just two kids having fun together.
And it's at Laura's brother's party, which is like her space.
Yeah.
Her world.
Yeah, she invited Cookie to be there, which I think means that she really trusts her now.
That's true.
Yeah.
So even though they had some misunderstandings at the beginning, they've managed to become real friends.
Yeah, they learn how to see things from each other's point of view. And that's what real friendship is all about, I think.
That's a great point. And it's something that we can all learn from, no matter how old we are.
Absolutely.
So I think Kids on C Street is such a great example of how even a simple children's book can make us think about some really important things. Like, what does it really mean to be fair? And how do we create a world where everyone feels like they belong?
That's a great question. And I think the book shows that it's not always easy, but it's definitely worth thinking about.
Absolutely. So what do you think? What stood out to you the most from our deep dive today?
I think for me, what really stood out is that being inclusive means we have to change how we think about things. It's not about doing extra nice things for someone just because they seem different.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's hard though, right? Like we're always being told what makes people special and unique.
Exactly. It's like we're always supposed to focus on what makes people different, which can actually make it harder to, create a space where everyone feels like they belong.
Yeah, and that's what I think is so cool about Kids on C Street. It makes us think about whether that's really the best way to do things. Like maybe belonging comes from being seen as just part of the group, not like you're some kind of exception.
Right. It's about being part of the whole.
Exactly. And that means we have to really listen to each other.
Yeah.
And try to understand where other people are coming from, even if it's different from our own experience. Yeah, that's so important. And we see that in the story too, like when Laura tells Cookie how she feels, even when it means correcting her. Even when Cookie's trying to be nice.
Right. Those moments where Laura's honest about her feelings are really what make their friendship stronger.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to speak up like that, especially when you might be making someone uncomfortable.
It does. And I think even though it's a children's book, Kids on C Street has a lot to teach us about how to be better people. It reminds us that learning about inclusivity is something we do our whole lives. It's not like we just figure it out and then we're done.
That's so true. We're all still learning.
Definitely. And it starts with thinking about our own biases and how what we do affects other people, even when we're trying to do the right thing.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I think this deep dive has really made me think about my own experiences with fairness and friendship and how I could do better.
Me too. It's definitely something we can all work on.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today. But I hope you all enjoyed our deep dive into Kids on C Street.
Yeah, it's a really great book with a lot of important things to say.
Definitely. So until next time, keep diving deep and stay curious.